We also have to say that tonight we are probably on resignation watch when it comes to the Attorney General of the United States. Jeff Sessions, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, he was a low-profile backbench Republican senator from Alabama when he became the first, and for a long time the only, member of the U.S. Senate to endorse Donald Trump for president very early on in the Trump campaign. Jeff Sessions was not known for passing legislation in the Senate. He was not known for being particularly close with any other group of senators or being any type of senator in particular other than being super conservative. If he was known for anything, it was for his beyond hardline position against immigration. Jeff Sessions was the Republican in the Senate who didn't just inveigh against illegal immigrants. He's against legal immigrants too. That hardline Jeff Sessions anti-immigrant stance became a central part of Donald Trump's campaign after Sessions and Trump made their alliance. And, you know, in the end, it seemed like sort of a small detail at the time. It's turned out to be really important over time that Trump not only took on Sessions as an endorsee and a surrogate, Trump also took on Sessions' staff from his Senate office. And in taking on Sessions' staff, he ended up taking on a lot of Jeff Sessions' policy positions. When Donald Trump had policy positions as a candidate, they tended to come whole cloth out of this policy shop that Jeff Sessions set up for Trump. So their relationship, it was more than an endorser-endorsee relationship. It was a different kind of thing and a more substantive kind of thing. Donald Trump, the way I think of it is that he basically absorbed Jeff Sessions. To the extent that he became a politician during the campaign, it was because Jeff Sessions and Jeff Sessions' whole operation was just absorbed into Trump Inc. And then after Donald Trump won the election, Jeff Sessions was the first announcement he made for his cabinet. It was announced that Jeff Sessions would be the Attorney General in the Trump administration. Well, tonight it feels like that might not last. The New York Times has just published an interview with President Trump in which he threatens to fire Robert Mueller, the special counsel investigating him on the Russia investigation. He criticizes Robert Mueller and says Mueller has conflicts of interest in the Russia investigation, conflicts that the president says he knows about, and he hasn't yet revealed them, but he will. He also rips the acting director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, which might sound random, but it's become a talking point on the Fox News channel and in conservative media in recent days, and so maybe we should have seen that coming. The president in this new interview also casts aspersions on the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, who is someone he appointed to that job, Rod Rosenstein, who's the one now overseeing the Trump-Russia investigations at the Justice Department because Attorney General Jeff Sessions is supposedly recused from them. In this same interview, though, importantly, the president also rips the Attorney General himself, Jeff Sessions, who he has been seen as so close to and who really did a huge amount toward making Trump a Republican candidate instead of just an iconoclastic, conservative, free-floating, non-party affiliated candidate in the primary. In this new interview tonight, the president criticizes his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, in such a way that in normal times, we would expect an official criticized this way by the president to resign before the evening is over. That said, these are not normal times, so who knows? We don't have a transcript of this interview yet from the New York Times tonight. We just have their write-up of, which is basically their characterization and a few quotes, few direct quotes from the president. They did, though, release this one piece of audio.
Sessions gets the job. Right after he gets the job, he recuses himself.
Was that a mistake?
Well, Sessions should have never recused himself. And if he was going to recuse himself, he should have told me before he took the job, and I would have picked somebody else.
Mm-hmm. He gave you no heads up at all in any sense?
Zero.
Okay.
So Jeff Sessions takes the job, gets into the job, recuses himself. I then have, which frankly, I think is very unfair to the president. How do you take a job and then recuse yourself? If he would have recused himself before the job, I would have said, thanks, Jeff, but I can't, I'm not going to take you. It's extremely unfair, and that's a mild word, to the president. So he recuses himself. I then end up with a second man who's a deputy.
So that's the only audio that we've gotten. We don't yet have a transcript from the Times. But just from that audio, first of all, now we know that President Trump speaks about himself as the president in the third person, as if that's not him. Second, there is a very interesting question that he's pointing at that doesn't at all seem obvious to me. Maybe I'm just being dense here. But when he says it's unfair to the president, meaning himself, that his attorney general has recused himself from the Trump-Russia investigation, why is that unfair? I mean, why is that unfair unless you would want your attorney general overseeing the Russia investigation in a way that was favorable to you, right? I mean, the reason Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation is because the Russia investigation is about the Trump campaign, and Jeff Sessions was a big part of the Trump campaign. He actually recused himself from all investigative matters that might have anything to do with the campaign, with the Clinton campaign or the Trump campaign, with anything that happened in the campaign for the presidency in 2016. Why would that be unfair to the president for him to take himself out of an oversight role of investigations into that? Unless Trump believes the only way to be fair and to fairly treat the president in that regard is to oversee those investigations in a way that is favorable to him. So there's that. Like I said, that's the only tape that we've got, and we don't yet have a transcript. I will tell you, though, the last thing he said there in the tape was, so he recuses himself, meaning Jeff Sessions. I then end up with a second man who is a deputy. From the Times' write-up about this tonight, it seems like the next thing that the president might have said there about Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is this, and this is quoting from the text of the piece, quote, the president expressed discontent with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, a former federal prosecutor from Baltimore. When Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation, the president said he was, get this, irritated to learn where his deputy was from. Quote, there are very few Republicans in Baltimore, if any. So maybe Rod Rosenstein will resign tonight, too. Or maybe Rod Rosenstein should be on resignation watch as well. I mean, the president is publicly calling into question his ability to do his job because of his partisan leanings or lack thereof, which is a public expression of a lack of confidence by the president in the deputy attorney general, who in the case of the Russia investigation is the acting attorney general. Again, that is the sort of thing that would typically cause a public official to resign immediately. But again, we don't know what to expect tonight. Now, as I also mentioned, in this interview tonight, the president cast some aspersions on the deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. Now, we don't yet have a quote from the Times about that. We just have their characterization of the president criticizing him. So I think we'll wait till we get the transcript or additional audio from the Times before we get into too much detail there, rather than going with a paraphrased set of criticism. When it comes to Robert Mueller, though, they are fairly explicit as to what he says about special counsel Robert Mueller. Quote, Mr. Trump said Mr. Mueller was running an office rife with conflicts of interest and warned, and the president warned investigators against delving into matters too far afield from Russia. Quote, Mr. Trump said he would never order the Mr. Trump never said he would order the Justice Department to fire Mr. Mueller, nor would he outline circumstances under which he might do so. But he left open the possibility, as he expressed deep grievance over an investigation that has taken a political toll in the 6 months since he took office. Asked if Mr. Mueller's investigation would cross a red line if it expanded to look at his family's finances beyond any relationship to Russia, Mr. Trump said, quote, I would say yes. I think that's a violation. Well, as noted last hour with Joy Reid, when she spoke with reporter David K. Johnston, who's the reporter who obtained the only 2 pages of Donald Trump's federal tax returns that have ever been made public, this reference, would it be a red line if Mueller started looking into finances, into the Trump family finances? And the president saying, yes, I think that would be a red line. I think that's a violation. I don't know if this is what the Times reporters were referring to when they asked him that question. But as soon as this interview posted tonight at the New York Times also posted in their business section a big news story about Deutsche Bank, which is the president's biggest lender. Deutsche Bank has an unusual financial relationship to Donald Trump. As David K. Johnston and other financial reporters have documented, when almost every other major bank would no longer do business with Donald Trump and the Trump Organization, Deutsche Bank continued to, and they remain his largest lender. Deutsche Bank has also been on the hook to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in fines for their role in Russian money laundering schemes in recent years. But according to the Times tonight, banking regulators are reviewing hundreds of millions of dollars in loans made to Mr. Trump's businesses through Deutsche Bank's private wealth management unit, which caters to an ultra-rich clientele. The Times is citing 3 people briefed on the review who were not authorized to speak publicly. The regulators want to know if the loans might have exposed the bank to heightened risks. Separately, and this is the key point for us tonight, Deutsche Bank has been in contact with federal investigators about the Trump accounts. They're citing 2 people briefed on the matter, and the bank is expected to eventually have to provide information to Robert Mueller, the special counsel overseeing the federal investigation into the Trump campaign's ties to Russia. So, in 2 separate stories tonight, the New York Times is reporting that Deutsche Bank is expecting to have to hand over its Trump-related records, its Trump-related financial and banking records, to Robert Mueller as special counsel. And the president is telling New York Times reporters tonight that if Robert Mueller delves too far into his finances, he would consider that a red line. He would consider that a violation. Never saying explicitly that he would fire Mr. Mueller, but clearly making that threat. If the president fired the special counsel investigating Russia, after he fired the FBI director who was investigating Russia, presumably all HE double hockey sticks would break loose in Washington, right? Republicans would start to come loose from their partisan moorings on this issue, presumably. But who knows? The president is clearly threatening to fire the special counsel tonight if he looks into the president's finances. The Times separately reporting tonight that Robert Mueller is looking into the president's finances. With all that said, the immediate question, and the question that may shape everything that happens next on this subject, is whether or not the Attorney General will now feel that he is forced to quit, now that the president has expressed more than a lack of confidence in him, now that the president has expressed regret that he's in that job. Again, the president saying on tape tonight that he wishes he would have chosen someone else to be Attorney General. That alone would usually be enough to cause the instant resignation of any cabinet official so described by the president at whose pleasure they serve. I should tell you, though, that that's not all. In this same interview, the president also goes further when it comes to Jeff Sessions and all but accuses him of lying to the Senate about Jeff Sessions' own contacts with Russian officials. Quoting from the Times, Mr. Trump also faulted Mr. Sessions for his testimony during Senate confirmation hearings, when Sessions said he had not met with any Russians, even though he had met at least twice with Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Jeff Sessions, quoting from the president, quote, Jeff Sessions gave some bad answers, the president said. He gave some answers that were simple questions and should have been simple answers, but they weren't. Now, Jeff Sessions so far is not commenting in response to this denigration from the president tonight. The president saying he wished he hadn't hired him and that he thinks he gave, quote, bad answers to the Senate. Again, this is the kind of thing you would expect to occasion a fairly quick resignation, like tonight, if you're going from past experience in American history. But you know what? Anybody trying to explain this past year based on past experience in American history has been pretty much shown up to be a chump all year long so far. So we will see what happens here. But we're trying to juggle all these stories as they continue to break over the course of the evening. Clearly, this is a big deal in terms of the pressure on the FBI, the pressure on the Deputy Attorney General, the pressure on the Special Counsel, and most most pointedly the pressure on Trump loyalist, early supporter, Attorney General Jeff Sessions. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with the former Department of Justice spokesman under Attorney General Eric Holder, who actually wrote before tonight that something like this might happen. We'll be talking with him. We've got Adam Schiff, the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, here tonight. And tonight, we've got the former top ethics official from the U.S. federal government here tonight. His last day on the job was yesterday. He is here for the interview tonight. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.